Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and in this video I want to talk about being productive as a parent. One of the things I learned was the fact that once you have kids, you can no longer be as productive as you once were. It's just not possible. There may be a few superhuman people out there, but generally speaking, it's just not possible. Not without being stressed out, constantly overtired, sacrificing sleep, getting no sleep in many cases because you don't get much sleep when you have kids, and simply crashing and burning out, making you pretty much useless to everyone and anyone who is fighting for your attention at this point. You cannot be as productive as you were once you have children. Your productivity takes a nosedive, and trying to be as productive, you will crash and burn. Having said that, you don't want to just sit there like a potato on the couch doing nothing and achieving little to nothing. Instead, you do want to do something so that you feel like you are being productive and you are achieving something and you are still building towards a better life and to achieving your goals. The question is, how can we be productive as parents without burning out and trying to do too much? And that's kind of the point of this video. I just want to share a few insights and tips and things that we've tried as a family to be productive, to achieve goals, to still have ambition, and to basically try and be productive despite having two kids who are clingy and needy and want every second of the day for us to give them attention. And that's what I want to share in this video. So the first tip is to simply leverage technology. Technology is your friend, and if you leverage it correctly, then you can achieve more in less time. And therefore, this is why it's top of my list. I'll start by giving an example. I really enjoy reading. I enjoy learning and studying. And one of the big problems I had was I couldn't hold a physical book in one hand, read it and turn the pages whilst holding a baby in the other, or simply have my other son sat on my knee. Again, I couldn't turn the pages with one hand. It just wasn't possible. I kept dropping the book. Thankfully, the book got dropped, not the baby, just to clarify. And in the end, it just got frustrating. I couldn't do it, so I put the book down, and I would end up in this pointless doom scrolling phase where I couldn't do much else, and it was getting really frustrated. Now at this time I was already switching to an e-reader device anyway, but this kind of really blew my mind, the fact that I could hold the Kindle in one hand or my Kobo in one hand, I could read all these books, and I could still have the eldest on my knee, I could still have the baby in the other hand, and it was great. I could hold both and read, and therefore I was eliminating that doom scrolling that was really frustrating. What about audiobooks? Same principle, you're still leveraging the technology. Personally, I'm not a big fan of audiobooks. I prefer to actually sit down and read, but you might prefer the audiobooks. For me, the Kindle and the Kobo were the better solution. And the other advantage is, as they get older, you'll discover you can't put a hot drink down on any flat surface, because even high up, my kids somehow manage to climb up. I don't know how they do it, but they do, and therefore you end up in a position where you can't put your hot cup of coffee down. So guess what? Having an e-reader device means you have the device in one hand, the coffee in the other. Problem solved. Providing they don't jump on you, which sometimes my kids do, but thankfully devices are waterproof these days. It's just a shame about the waste of the coffee. But that's one example of leveraging technology. There are other things you can do. You can invest in a robotic Hoover. That'd be a great way to save time instead of hoovering. You could also invest in other technological devices that could save time, such as a dishwasher, a tumble dryer. And these are just ideas and ways that you can leverage technology to enable you to be more productive and just free up more time. Because one of the things you'll notice is your time completely plummets and you just don't seem to have enough time to do anything. And then just slap in there a lack of sleep, assuming you get any sleep, and you've just got no time, you're tired all the time as well. Try doing anything meaningful, it's very difficult. So leverage technology as much as you possibly can. You can also use your phone instead of scrolling. You could use it to learn a language on Duolingo, for example. You could use Brilliant. There's plenty of software and apps out there that you can use to learn instead of wasting your time doom scrolling. The second tip is to declutter your home. They reckon around 40% of your housework can be reduced simply by decluttering. Not only that, but all the items in your house will require time. It will suck time away from you, and instead of focusing on what matters most, you focus on all these things you have that you don't really need or care about. So for example, the sunk cost fallacy, the idea that, well, I've already bought it, therefore I need to use it. I don't really want to use it, but I've already paid for it, I feel guilty, so I'll just use it. But you don't really care about it. there's a problem with having too much stuff. If you declutter that stuff, you remove that obstacle. However, every item in your house requires time. You have to clean it, you have to tidy it, you have to put it away, you have to maintain it. All the stuff builds up, and that's just using the stuff and keeping it. We're not even talking about the increased cleaning that comes about by having lots of items in your house. So by simply decluttering, you can save time. Now, you may look at a robotic Hoover like I did and go, how much? I can't really afford that. However, decluttering your home, that's pretty much free. It's just going to take some time to do it, but you can put the time and effort in, and in the long run it will pay dividends and you will save time. 40% reduction in housework. The next tip is the 1% principle, or the 1% rule. If you've read the book Atomic Habits, you may be familiar with this already. However, like I said at the beginning of this video, you cannot be productive as you once were. Once you become a parent, you lose a lot of time, you also lose a lot of sleep, and you just cannot be as productive as you once were. It's just not possible. And therefore you need to reevaluate your expectations, you need to simplify things and realize you cannot do everything and you cannot achieve it all. You cannot make those huge gains like you once did. And the 1% rule comes in handy because it's the idea of every day I'm going to aim to increase 1% in whatever it is I'm looking to work on. It may be that you have to reevaluate and say, actually, it's 1% improvement on whatever it is I'm learning each week. And you may look at that and say, 1%, you're kidding, right? I used to make these huge gains. Yeah, pre-kids. Now you have kids. Being a productive parent, you've got to reevaluate expectations. And it may be 1% each week. But here's the thing, even if it's 1% each week, that's a 52% increase in whatever skill or whatever it is you're working on, wanting to develop and improve upon. That's a 52% increase each year. That's a pretty decent return. And as a parent, that's an exceptionally good return. So it's something to bear in mind. Apply the 1% principle. It'll also take the pressure off yourself to make these great achievements by just simply saying 1% daily, weekly. You might have to switch it up as you go through different times and seasons with kids, because sometimes you have a little bit more time and other times you just have the 0. So apply the 1% rule and see how it goes for you. The fourth tip is to simply do fewer things. There's a great book called Essentialism which talks about this, the idea of we strip back all the non-essentials in our lives, all the things that are nothing more than distractions and just fighting for our time. We don't really care about them that much. And we just simply say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on them. These are essential. These are most important to me. This is where I'm going to put my focus, my time and my effort. And especially because my time is so limited now, my time is even more valuable. It's even more essential to focus just on the essentials in your life. Recommend the book Essentialism, by the way. It's a great book if you want to develop that concept further. But honestly, one of the best things you can do is realize you cannot do everything and just simply cut it back and say, this is essential. And it's not easy because there's loads of things I'm interested in, loads of things I want to pursue and do, but I just physically can't do it, and therefore I have to sit back and be strict and be disciplined and say, no, these are essential, I'm going to focus on these. So do fewer things. That is, and honestly, it's a great tip. I just wish I learned that much earlier on. Tip number 5 is to work in short, sharp bursts. I was studying to become an accountant. I finally qualified at one level anyway. I'm now looking to pursue my chartered accountancy. But one of the things that I had to do was to study in short, sharp bursts. It was a combination of thinking through the Pomodoro technique, where you work for 25 minutes and then you rest for 5, for example, and also the idea of the 80-20 principle, the idea that 20% of the input will produce 80% of the outcome. And these all came together while studying for exams. I realized I just did not have the time, and even when I had the time, it was a case of I couldn't just sit there for a couple of hours and study. I had to really think this through and apply these principles and study in short, sharp bursts. And what I would do is I would take the Pomodoro technique and I would study for 25 minutes. I was lucky enough to get the full 25 minutes, and then I would have to go and do something else because of the kids. And it's really difficult to study for exams, to study for anything for that matter, when you've got that constant interruption. But it really forced me to think deeply about how I studied, and applying these short, sharp bursts, like these short blocks, 25 minutes here, there, scattered throughout the day. I probably did get a couple of hours of studying every single Saturday and Sunday on my weekends off, but it was just spread out thinly across the day. It would have been nicer to have that deep study like Cal Newport talks about in his book Deep Work, but it just wasn't possible. I would have loved to do it, but as I say, I couldn't. And the challenge for me was the content for the course got even more difficult. It was a whole new level. There was more to learn, there was more to know, and it just made life really difficult. But this was a technique that got me through my level 4 accountancy studies with AAT, and it genuinely worked. I mean, I didn't get the best results for every unit and exam that I sat, but it was enough to get me passes and to help me to complete the course, which I have now finished. So clearly it worked, it helped me, it might help you. You can apply it in many different ways as well. You don't have to apply it to studying for the exams. That was just the way that I applied this method, which worked for me in that case. Tip number 6 kind of follows on from the previous one, working in short, sharp bursts, except with number 6, it's making the point of blocking off time, whether it be officially in some sort of calendar or just simply communicating it with your wife or your partner. And we do this to this day. It works really well. I'll just simply say, look, I need to do X, Y, and Z. It's going to take this long and I need to do it in a chunk. And I'll just block off that time to focus purely on that. And my wife will watch the kids and ensure that they're not a distraction. And that frees me up to focus on doing what I'm doing. Like recording this YouTube video, for example, I've blocked off the time. My wife is looking after the kids, and that frees me up to focus on this video without distractions. So blocking off time, it really works for us. Give it a try and see if it works for you. It will help you be more productive, and it kind of helps you with that Cal Newport idea in his book Deep Work, blocking off a solid chunk of time to purely focus on what you need to focus on. The final tip, tip number 7, is to make lists. Now, this is a favorite of my wife. She really loves making a good list. Personally, I was skeptical. I kind of sat back and thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to sit down, spend time I don't have to write down all the things I need to do, and then I'm going to go and do them with less time. It didn't kind of sit with me, to be honest, at first, but then I've kind of warmed up to the idea that there's something about making a list, and not just making a list of here's all the things I need to do and then running around like a headless chicken as fast as you can trying to do all those things. That wasn't the point of the list. The list wasn't to get this all done in a day, which is what my assumption was. The list was, here's a list of things we need to do. These are the most important things that have to get done. These are essential. And then we go and do those things on the list that are important, that are essential. These are the priority. And that's what the list did. It forced us to prioritize what was most important, what had to get done today, and then the rest, that was a bonus. And this was really life-changing. Not only did it allow us to consolidate all the things that we needed to do and physically see them and cross them off, which by the way gives you a bit of a boost, confidence boost, like yeah, we've got things done today. It makes you feel more productive because you can see things getting done. When you do what's most important and essential, you think, wow, we got a lot done today. You just get that buzz, you get that confidence, and it's a feel-good factor that you really need when you're trying to get things done with kids around. But making that list was a real big help. It helped us to focus on what was most important for the day, and it helped us to consolidate everything in one location, and allowed us to prioritize what was most important. And ultimately, you get to see, actually, I've done a lot today, I've achieved a lot. You know what? It doesn't matter that we got these things didn't get done. It's fine. The list really helped us to do that, and it helped us to see we were actually achieving quite a bit, and we were able to slow down and spend more time with the kids. And the other thing is that you're not sat there trying to remember everything that you need to do and sat there like, okay, I've done that, have you done that? Okay, I've done that. That confusion's gone. You just look at the list and it's all this. But it actually helps clear mentally as well, which is a real big help when you're trying to be productive, because you're saving time, you're not thinking about it, you're not worrying about it, and when you do remember something, you just run over it right on the list. It's a real big help. It really helped us. It did actually save time in the long run, despite my original protest. But give the list a go. It definitely worked for us, and it might work for you. So there's some tips that me and my wife have kind of learned on our journey as being parents, and also trying to be productive and achieve things at the same time. Hopefully they'll help you. They're from our experience, so maybe they work for us, but they might not all work for you. Maybe some will work for you and some won't. But if you're just looking for a few tips on how to be productive, there's a few that we've discovered. I hope that helps, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you can, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully see you in the next video. Take care.